everybody. This is Christy Whitman with the Quantum Success Show, where you can get your information and inspiration to create your desires. And as you can see, I have a friend next to me. This beautiful woman is Kristine Carlson, and she just wrote a book, From Heartbreak to Wholeness, A Hero's Journey. So I want to tell you a little bit about Kristine. You probably have actually heard about her because Kristine Carlson is a New York Times bestselling author. She's a speaker and a leader in the field of transformation. After collaborating with her late amazing husband, Dr. Richard Carlson, she created a publishing industry phenomenon with the Don't Sweat the Small Stuff series, selling more than 25 million copies worldwide. I know that book, one thing in there is that you'll never die with your inbox empty, literally was like a life changer for me. So Chris is emerging as a profound teacher in the areas that matter most to the human heart, how to heal and how to love, which I am going to love this conversation on healing. She has captivated readers around the world with her previous 6 books, which include Don't Sweat the Small Stuff in Love, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff for Women, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff for Moms. I need to read that one. So I'm sure I can read all of them and have so much breakthrough. So Chris, I'm just so excited that you're here, and I'm really looking forward to getting to know you better.
Oh, thanks, Christy, for having me on. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here with you.
Thank you so much. So you wrote a new book, From Heartbreak to Wholeness, which I love that title. What is this book about? Is it primarily, for people who are grieving a loss at this point in their lives, or tell us who this book is for?
Well, this book is a book not about grief, but a book on how to really move through your loss and transcend it, rebirth a new life, and really come back to wholeness and joy, and actually a much greater feeling of wholeness and joy than you could possibly ever imagine.
So what if someone is experiencing some kind of loss in their life right now? I would assume that your book is for whatever kind of loss, if it is the death of a loved one, if they lost their job, if they're going through divorce. So what would you say to someone who's right in the middle of loss at this moment, who is actually suffering right now? What would your book do for them?
Well, what my book is going to do for you right now is it's going to immediately show you that there is a path to healing. It has very much to do with the story that you tell yourself about what's happened to you. That this event, I'm going to show you right up front that this event that's changed your life is your initiation. It's your new trajectory that you're on to really facilitate a new life. And a lot of times, when people hear that, they're hearing it kicking and screaming because they didn't want a new life. They liked the life that they had. I did too. I lost my husband really suddenly 11 years ago. I loved my life the way it was. It was amazing. And I was not happy that I had to start a whole new chapter of my life without him. It was a terrible heartbreak that I endured and went through. And yet there was the big pivot for me, was understanding that this happened and I had to find the reason why it happened. And I had to stand in the journey of what it meant to heal. And this is what this book is about, healing. It's about the stories we tell ourselves are the most important ones. It's about how to frame your story as the hero's journey, about not living at the affect of your circumstances or being a victim, but standing up and getting back up every day and saying, I can do this, I can emerge, I can change, I can do this journey. Your soul's calling you to use what's happened to you to become a better person, a better version of who you are, and to really remember who you are. More than anything, to remember that you're whole and you're complete. That's what this book is about. It's a transformational book for sure.
I love that, Christine, because, this month actually is 20 years ago, my sister had committed suicide. Oh. And for me, it was one of those things that it's like I had to shift my perspective because I could see my mom and dad just focusing and spiraling in, why did this happen? What could we have done? Why did she do this? And I just made a decision at that point that I was going to look at this from a blessing perspective And that now that it's 20 years later, and I've done a lot of healing on different levels and at different times, and just when I think I'm over it, something will get me, and I go at a different, level and deepness to my healing. But I remember back then making a decision that that was her choice. This thing happened. What am I going to do to make sure that I live my best life? And I'll never know why. Sometimes we don't know why someone suddenly, has a traumatic death, or why they're taken from us, or why a marriage that we thought was going to be forever is over, or why all of a sudden you're asked to resign from your company, or, we don't know some of the, and while it's happening, we don't know these things and what the blessings is and what the perspective is. But if we're limited in our perspective, at least I feel, if we feel like this is happening to me and for me, it's a very different life and a very different healing process moving into your new life. Would you agree?
Yes, it is. Oh, absolutely. I think that's the one of the largest pivots people can make toward healing, is to realize somehow, some way, that this event happened for you. It didn't happen to you. It happened for you, and it happened for you to emerge. And even, the terrifying thing about suicide and losing somebody through suicide is that, we always feel like we should have done something to prevent that. But the gift is the gift that you got from it, Christy, which is really to live better. And that's the gift your sister gave to you. She woke you up to your own life. And isn't that the gift that everyone who dies gives us, is we get to wake up to the preciousness of life, because it is over so quickly. And it can be over so suddenly, like in Richard's case. He was walking along alive, and then was on a plane and had a pulmonary embolism, like an aneurysm, just killed him instantly. And fortunately he lived with that understanding. And, he left notes all over our house when he left on that business trip. I was very blessed with a man who really lived what he taught, which was presence. I wasn't living that way. I was living as if I had all the time in the world with him. And I wasn't awake to life in the same way. But boy, I woke up, and it's been an incredible gift for me. And that's so much of the gift that I want to give back to my readers, is that this thing that's happened to you isn't something that you welcomed. It's not something necessarily that you ever chose for yourself, but you get to choose how you heal. You get to choose how you turn that heartbreak into something that will help you emerge a greater person, greater for even bigger love. And certainly that was what I learned in my journey, and what I hope to help many people learn in their healing process.
Let me ask you this. I know a lot of times there's people that know that they maybe haven't gotten over their divorce, or that death of maybe a mother or father, or a husband or wife, or even child. There are things that maybe they know that they need to heal from. Maybe there's an event, they lost a job, whatever it was that they're holding on to. But maybe they're reluctant or even afraid to open up a book that put some, boldly faces in front of them, things that they're most guarded against or protecting against, like heartbreak. So what would you want them to know?
Well, I would want you to know that your soul is calling for you to heal in this lifetime. It's calling for all of us to heal. I mean, truthfully, I believe the soul, we choose a body and a time and a place to come in for healing. I mean, I kind of have think about this journey of being a human being, and it kind of sucks sometimes, like it seems like the people who die have it a lot better on a lot of levels. They're free, but we can be freer in life and more in love with life the more healing that we do. And then life really does transcend into the beautiful experience that it is. It won't be as beautiful if you have not dealt with your grief, if you've not done the inner work. This book is an inner work guide. It's a soul guide. It's about your soul inquiry. It's about you diving deep into you and you emerging the hero. And we are all the hero that we've been waiting for. We all have that in us, but we have to choose it. And we have to choose to rise above our circumstances. And then, I want to just say that this book isn't necessarily for a writer, but you will do a lot of writing if you follow the workbook at the end section of every chapter, that there is a transformational writing process that I lead you through. And I do that because I used to hold these heartbroken open circles in my home where widows and divorced people would come to, to have support. And what I noticed through these heartbroken open circles, we would sit in circle, and sometimes 30, 40, 50 people, what was the most healing was that they shared their story. And I made sure that everyone walked away not feeling victimized by their story, but by feeling empowered through the sharing of it, through the tears, through sharing that we aren't alone. So much of when something happens, we become isolated because we feel so lonely. I thought I was the only widow at 43. I mean, seriously, I didn't know another widow. And then I started holding these circles, and lo and behold, 30, 40 women showed up, and most of them were widows my age, and you start to learn that you're not alone. And that's such a beautiful part of what suffering can do for us. It really brings us closer to humanity. We become more connected. And certainly with social media, that's one of the beautiful things about social media, is that it allows us to be connected in the community and not feel so lonely in our healing.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that. It's like they leave not feeling like a victim, because sometimes when we tell our stories over and over, and we don't process them in the same way, just for telling them over and over, we can be sucked into, staying in that victim space. So I appreciate the fact that you allow them to release the energy of it and tell their stories and truly heal from it in a way that turns them to feeling, like they're empowered by it, like they can really learn something from this, and let this be like a stepping off point for the next part of their life, so that that point doesn't have to define them. Because I always say that it's like, we're here, we're human, and we live in the land of polarity. So it's not like all just unicorns and rainbows and lollipops. I mean, it'd be great if it was, but we do have these things, like even if your life, you've got it all sorted out and everything's good, you've got contrast that shows up from time to time, what you don't want, and you get to figure out what you do want from that. But when you have something like a death, like a tragedy, like a loss, and I think so many of us are afraid to lose, so we're hanging on. But when you can at least breathe in and breathe out and just know that it's part of the human experience, and that there is a process to releasing and moving through loss, I think that can be really human as a healing as a human being.
Yeah, and moreover, to really understand that this heartbreak you're feeling is actually breaking you open, open to more expression, and open to realizing and maybe even remembering who you are. One of the things that was really surprising to me in my grief and in my heartbreak was I realized that I was broken open, and I realized that I was awake to life in a whole different capacity than I had been living. And I think that that's one of the beautiful things about suffering, is its mindfulness qualities, that it's the greatest teacher of mindfulness that ever was. Even if you define it that way or not, you are very much aware of how you're feeling, and you're very much awake to very much of the beauty of life when you're in that space. If you've taken a stand that you're not a victim of your circumstances. And it doesn't mean you don't feel your grief any less just because of that. You still feel your grief, and you should feel your grief. Grief doesn't, it has its own waiting room. If you don't ever decide to go there, you will go there. And otherwise you'll be living, with a sense of malaise over you. And it is something not to be afraid of. It's a healing mechanism. It's an emotional response, and all you have to do is just go through it. I was really surprised that when I wasn't a big crier before I lost Richard. I had a really hard time crying. I was used to say, well, I can't be happy. Nobody can be. But when I would cry, I would feel so peaceful at the end of a grieving session I would have with myself, like I would feel so peaceful, and I would be so surprised by that, because you think of grief as all darkness. It's just all, you wake up in darkness every day, but no, because that's not what it is. It's you actually experience a tremendous amount of light and joy amidst your sorrow. And I think that that's what also is really prevalent in this book, From Heartbreak to Wholeness. I talk about so much that the journey is full of mixed surprises in it along the way. And I hope it's really going to help people as they go through their process, make it a lot shorter, and also just help them transform their story into one that they can share that's of wisdom for their soul.
I'm sure it will. It's amazing. What I'm taking away is break open, not break down.
Yeah.
And if you can change your perspective when some type of loss is happening, that this is a breaking open, not a breaking down, it really changes the trajectory of how you look at it. Because it doesn't, when you feel, I remember for me, it was a commitment with my sister. If I felt angry, I let myself feel the anger in a controlled way. I didn't like start throwing things and hurting people, but I could feel my anger. And when I would feel sadness, when something like it might be Christmas time or decorating the tree and I see an ornament that reminded me of her and it brought up emotions, I would stop whatever I was doing and I would sit there and I would cry and I would let every tear come out. Yeah, like you're saying, it's like I was so present with the emotions, and I was so closed down before that. I couldn't feel any any anger, any sadness, any of the things I was experiencing or feeling, because I was so closed down. And I learned, most of us learn to be so closed down, or not be able to feel my feelings or suppress my feelings. And you're so right. I think now looking at it from that break open part, it was a breaking open. It was a opening.
Yeah, true awakening. I mean, well, like, we all build these barriers around our heart to love, and they're very unknowing and very innocent, but when you do go through a great loss, or an annihilation of your identity, there's nothing quite, when you break through, it breaks all of that down, and it just shatters your life as you knew it. What's amazing is that the real you, actually has an opportunity to emerge, because your ego is at an all-time low, so the real you has an opportunity to emerge. And if you understand that and you can feel that, and just that, what you were saying is so powerful, because why are we so afraid to feel life? That's what it means to be alive.
Right.
I mean, that's what it is to be alive. You cannot feel great joy unless you can feel great sorrow. That's the polarity, and that's the reality that we live in, this three-dimensional reality that we are in, 3, 4, 5, whatever you want to call it. But for most of us, we live in three-dimensional reality, and and we're feeling human beings, and so you don't have to be afraid of your feelings. You just have to be able to allow them to be where they are, to be with them, and to express them. And then, lo and behold, just like children, your feeling is replaced by something else. Moment to moment, it's something else, and that's the healthiest way to live.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I always share a story about my son Maxim, that we were driving about 45 minutes away from our house when I think he was about 5, maybe even 4. And, because we were driving, and he just all of a sudden he goes, "I miss my house. I want to go home." And he just started crying, and he's in the back seat and I'm in the front seat, and I pulled out it in my hand and I just held his hand and let him cry. And nobody, made him wrong. Nobody made him stupid or silly, or, we didn't judge him. It wasn't like, "Oh my God, don't feel that way." Or, I just held his hand while he cried. And then he, like, all of a sudden just wiped off his tears. And then he was like, "Oh, look at it. Something's up," and I was like, wow, that was so brilliantly done, because there was nobody teaching him not to do that. Nobody stopping him from processing how he truly was feeling in the moment.
Kids are great models for that. They really are. They know how to do life very healthily. If we just get out of their way and let them be where they are, they get out of their own way very quickly.
Yes, we can relearn to do that. And it sounds like your book is going to help everybody do that. So I know you have a special gift. We're actually going to put a link under the video so that all of you can take advantage of the beautiful gift that Chris is giving us. And it will be right under the link, the link will be right under the video. And when you purchase her book, she's actually going to give you a beautiful gift. So Chris, I would love for you to share with everybody.
Yeah, so there's several bonus gifts that we've created. And probably my favorite is that I recorded at the back of every chapter, there's a soul mantra guided meditation, which I've recorded for you. So it precedes a soul inquiry, a series of questions, and a transformational writing process that the book leads you through. So I think you'll really enjoy these recordings. They turned out really, really special. The music actually came from, it's amazing. I was on the beach at one of my retreats that I was leading, and we had this great yoga teacher, and she was had one of those musical drums, and we were at the ocean. She was playing this musical drum, and then this guy was running down the beach, and he had with him his like windpipe flute, and he just stopped and just started jamming with her with the ocean in the background. And so we ended up using that music on these soul mantras. It's absolutely beautiful. So if you don't get them for anything else, you'll love just sitting and breathing to the music. It's so beautiful. So yeah, and that's my favorite of all the gifts that you're going to receive.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for giving us that, and thank you for writing this book and for being.
You're welcome. And it was great talking to you, Christy, and just thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much, Chris. And for everybody else, leave us a comment. Let me know what you're taking away. If you're in that place of feeling sorrow, I really recommend that you go and get the book. If you're having any sense of loss, if you've had any sense of loss and you feel like there's something that is still there that you need to heal from, I highly recommend that you go and buy her book. So Chris, thank you so much for being here. Leave a comment, everybody, and have an amazing week.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for watching, and here is a related video to watch right now. Also, check out my free webinars on creating whatever you want in your life using the universal laws that I explain in each webinar. So share your thoughts by leaving a comment and continue the conversation at christywhitman.com.